the
Oh,
platform.
there we go. We are live.
Yay, we're back. Hi, everyone. We are back in action. Welcome to this live. We are in the Red, a publication of Debt Collective. And I want to say my name is Maddie Clifford. I'm the creative media strategist at the Debt Collective. And this is the third time we've gone live. So thank you for rolling with us. We're still figuring it out, but this is a great way to be able to touch base with people, with our members, with our allies. And today I'm really excited because I'm going to have a conversation with my comrade. Jason Wozniak. He's an amazing educator, professor, academic, philosopher. I could go on and on. An OG of Debt Collective, what he likes to call the pirate ship of Debt Collective. But today we're going to be talking about Jubilee School, and Jubilee School is a really important series that Debt Collective has been putting on for a number of years now. I'll let Jason talk about it a little bit more. But this is actually a free opportunity for folks to tap in. You can come to Jubilee School and hear from professors, from organizers, from people that are experts in the field, and they're going to be talking about all types of topics related to debt abolition. So yeah, without further ado, let's start off. Jason, if you could just introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you so much, Maddie, for creating this opportunity, for doing all the work that you do at Debt Collective and outside Debt Collective. You're also an amazing artist, and you bring all that artistic flair to the struggle. So I really appreciate you and the work you do. And it's an honor to be in conversation with you because we've shared many conversations before behind the scenes, and now it's nice to have that conversation out loud. But really, really quickly, yeah, my name's Jason Wozniak. I am in Philadelphia. I'm a professor, as Maddie said, but I've also been doing different types of organizing with Debt Collective since Occupy Wall Street in New York City, and mainly in the political education realm. So, what I mean by political education is how do we get people to think critically about the world that we're in, the systems that we're in, the relationships that bind us, like debt relationships, different forms of exploitation, oppression, etc. But not only how to think critically about that, but then how to propose alternatives. Like, what do we do? Okay, so we can negate some of these things and make them hopefully go away, but then what are we left with? So that's been kind of like my project with Debt Collective for, yeah, what is it now? Almost 15 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Um, yeah, and like you said, I've been honored to be a part of the OG club, I guess. I've learned from the masters, from the greats, going all the way back to Cotty Park, and um, trying to just keep it going with the good people, old and young. Yeah.
Right, and you're a philosophy professor. Can you talk a little bit about that? What your
Mhm.
title is there and stuff.
Yeah, so I actually teach education philosophy, which is really cool. And what that basically means is it's thinking about the aims of education. Like when everybody thinks, myself included, that we know what education is until we start to ask the question, what is education? Right.
Right.
And so yeah, what is education? What's a good educational experience? What should education be for? Who does the educating? What does it mean to learn? Some of these big questions, but then also thinking through the ways in which education is situated in political systems, economic systems, and how do we use education to transform those systems if we're not happy with them? These are all philosophical, theoretical questions that are deeply tied to practice, because education philosophy without practice is empty. And so you need to have some sort of practice attached to it, in the same way that the practice should be guided by some ideas or philosophies, right? And so that's what we talk a lot about with my students, and also I think what I try and do in certain other political work too, including Jubilee School.
Absolutely, and I have so much love for educators. Shout out to all the educators out there. My background is in education. I feel like once an educator, always an educator. Like, I've always taken the practice of education into every aspect of my work and life, and it's so powerful. And also, shout out to the San Francisco USD teachers who went on strike last week and they won.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, teachers, and yes, teachers unions. uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about Jubilee School, what it is, and how it came to be?
Yeah. So this is a great question. I would say honestly that the long origin story does go back to Occupy Wall Street when there were educational experiences happening everywhere in the movement, of the movement, for the movement.
Mhm,
And what we being like a small crew of us ended up doing was creating something called Occupy University. And what that was a project where we decided that we were going to create free educational experiences for anyone and everyone,
mhm.
any place in New York City. So we would do stuff on subways, like critical math on subways. We did stuff in the parks. We occupied a very interesting named tower to do what we called horizontal pedagogy for a year. So we were in Trump Tower every Thursday night, prac-
Wow.
practicing pedagogies with just whoever showed up. And so, in a way, Jubilee School is like a newer online iteration of what we were trying to do then, which is to say, everybody deserves an opportunity to study, to grow, to think, to feel, and it shouldn't be limited to anyone, and definitely shouldn't be limited by price.
Mhm,
The other thing I'll say is like one of the major principles is like if you get people together to think together, they can think pretty much anything.
mhm,
And there is a lot of like beauty in seeing just people coming from all different walks of life to try and think together about the problems of the day, whether that be liberation, whether that be like getting rid of oppression. And so the idea behind Jubilee School is like to create online experiences, which is hard, as you know,
mhm.
to think together with other people about different debt types and how we cancel debts and then what do we do? Like how do we create more just institutions and ways of being in the world together?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I didn't know all about that origin story, but it makes a lot of sense now. Um, So I want to talk specifically about the word Jubilee, not to be confused with this really crappy YouTube series that's causing all this division and isn't about school. Um, so Jubilee School has existed before Jubilee. So the platform, the word Jubilee has historical and philosophical roots in the biblical idea of a Jubilee year. Some people don't know that when debts were canceled and people were freed from bondage. So all the slaves were free. What does the concept of Jubilee mean to you, and how does it shape the vision behind Jubilee School and why it's called that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you going back to the definition there. I think part of it is like if we're going to cancel our debts, if we're going to abolish debt, we need to learn and study together like how we're going to do that.
Mhm,
And so I think part of it, the idea behind Jubilee in the Jubilee School title is like we need a school where people can freely gather to talk about abolition and learn abolition tactics and ideas and analysis as a collective.
mhm,
And I think that type of free association and free thinking around that type of alternative utopian horizon is like what we're trying to do. So, like, get into the nitty gritty of like a different debt type and give it a good analysis, and then talk about like different tactics that we can cultivate together to cancel medical debt, to cancel housing debt, to cancel student debt. Um, we need to be together in free association without limitations. And that goes for, academic freedom limitations too. Like we need places where we can think without being, fired, slapped down by administrators, yeah, threatened by forces outside the institution. So we're really trying to just open up that free space to figure out how we free ourselves from these bonds of debt that are crushing so many of us.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I think also it's especially important to go back to the Jubilee year concept. I gotta shout out, my comrade Braxton Brewington, who wrote a
Mhm.
piece, "Debt Forgiveness is a Core Principle of Christianity," because a lot of these Christian nationalists try to act like, you know, they're all about putting people into debt. They're all about profiting off of people's debt, and they want to open the floodgates for profit colleges. They want to restrict what professors can talk about and say, and how what we teach and how we teach. But Leviticus 25, God instructs Moses and the people of Israel to institute a year of jubilee. Every 50 years, at the blast of a trumpet, the jubilee would mark a moral and economic shift in society. Right. And
Yeah,
so, I don't know if people know that that's the origins and that's, like, kind of the core principle behind Jubilee School itself as well.
totally. Yeah. And it's in other traditions as well, right? Like in Islam and other, yeah. Hebraic. And
Is
so,
that
like, yeah, it's beautiful. There's a long history of debt abolition being the right thing to do. We somehow forgot that. So maybe Jubilee School is like we're learning how to remember that tradition.
right?
Yeah.
Remembering.
Yeah.
And we talked about, yeah, no, like, especially living in a moment of extreme wealth inequality.
Mhm.
And the great thing is that Jubilee School is free, so you can
Yep.
sign up for Jubilee School. I'll remind you all of this as well, but the Jubilee School kickoff is February 26th, 2026. You can go to debtcollective.org/events to sign up for that. But why do you think that it's so important to have like accessible, free educational spaces? You kind of spoke to it a little bit, but can you
Yeah.
tell us more about why it's important?
No, this is, I think, the crux of the issue that
Mhm.
education is a right. It should be given to us, or not even given to us. I don't even know if I should use that word given to us. It's just we should all have the ability and opportunity to study, to learn, to teach. And there should be no limitations. Like that should be commonly held. The state shouldn't be able to limit it. Corporations shouldn't be able to limit it. We darn well shouldn't be put into debt for asking for this thing called education. And so, like, what we're doing as Debt Collective is saying, in a way, we're like taking back a part of the commons, being like, education should be commonly available for everybody at any time,
Mhm.
open access, no judgment. And this is one of the beautiful things about Jubilee School. We'll get like, people with PhDs, people that have been doing work and who knows where, people that are just like coming home from work tired as all heck and like wanting to just like think with other people. They're in massive debt. And then like you got this wild like configuration, and maybe university should be like that, right? Like, like in Oakland, like Merritt College, there's people coming into in the cafeteria, and you got like the Black Panthers, you got like the guys making the hamburgers, whatever, and they're all just in this cafeteria and they're just like thinking together about radical possibilities. Like we lost that. We got to get that back.
Right.
And so like maybe Jubilee Schools is like what we're trying to do is create this space where like anyone at any time can come in without cost and have that opportunity to like imagine a world differently, imagine their life differently. And you do that together through education.
Absolutely, and I also think that one of the things that really spoke to me, which I feel like for so much of my life, education was also tied to to
Yes.
a job, and I think that although we are always in solidarity with labor, it's also important to know that, like you said, education is a right. It just is. Like it's like you need
Yeah.
shelter, you need education, you need healthcare, and because it's so tied to a job, people don't even realize that you can actually just be curious about things. You can pursue
Yes.
things that interest you. And because we have driven education system, profit driven healthcare, profit driven housing, we've lost the core principle behind like pursuing your passions,
Yeah.
pursuing things that you're excited about. And um, that kind of leads me to my next question. I'm going to skip around, but there's this narrative that you hear a lot, especially on the right, but even in other spaces, that college is a scam.
Mhm.
Um, and how do you respond to that? And, what does that bring up for you when you hear this concept that college is a scam? Why do you think
Mhm.
people say that?
Yeah, first off, I just want to thank you for saying what you just said because I
Mhm,
think I you said it way better than I could have ever said it. And I think what you were mentioning is like education should not be commodified.
mhm,
Like we should have that opportunity, that right, that freedom to like pursue growth of ourselves, of our being without it via education, without having a cost attached to it, and or this like return on investment logic that I think you were hitting at too, right?
mhm,
Which debt massively intensifies. So really thank you for making that super clear. But yeah, this idea that college is a scam. I mean, college is a scam is an argument that people like I think it's totally decontextualized. Like, if universities were paid for by taxes on the billionaires and millionaires like it should be, we wouldn't be having that same conversation because people would have access to the university without going into massive debt or having to fork over their whole salary to get it. So the scam part is that return on investment logic. Basically, what they're arguing is it's not worth the investment. But again, that's doing what you just said we shouldn't do, which is commodify the education, and it doesn't
mhm,
have to be. And then it's putting like this price tag on like what it means to learn and study. And so I think like I get really upset. It's not just the conservatives. There's a lot of liberals that make this argument too, which is really frustrating.
Mhm,
But, like, what we're saying is, like, what's a scam is the fact that you gotta pay your whole life to try and get into this thing called the university. What's a scam is a political economic system that, like, buries you in debt and then holds you down and exploits you because you're indebted. The scam is that, they don't say that up for rich people. They don't say that for the wealthy. So they're like, who they talking to here? They're
mhm,
like telling like the working class, the poor, the historically marginalized, like, oh, it's a scam, don't pursue it. But like they're not telling that to like the elite who get to like to study whatever they want to do whenever they can.
mhm.
So like the whole thing's a scam. Their argument's a scam. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And we that's what we gotta call out. We gotta question their scam.
That's so true, and also, I think it's important that this narrative, just like you were saying, it's for working class folks, and I often hear
Yeah,
people,
no.
"Go into the trades, go into the trades," which is
Right.
great. We talked about in the last live, which, every type of labor, is important, but people should be able to pursue multiple types of study, fields of
There you
study.
go.
We need a diverse array of people pursuing diverse array of different,
Yeah.
practices, and so it is really frustrating when people buy into it because just like you said, rich people, I mean, even look at all of the conservatives and the right wing people that are really rich, they've all gone to Ivy League
Right.
institutions. So
Right.
what they're saying is they're really trying to keep people from understanding that they have a right to go to school like everyone else.
Yeah.
And
And and like why shouldn't the person that's a plumber also, if they want to study philosophy, why can't they study philosophy?
yeah, they might want to write some poetry. They might
Right,
want to.
exactly.
They can't write poetry just because they're plumbers. Like, come
It
on.
100%. Like the person that's working, behind the counter at the gas station, maybe they want to go make art. Like, why not? And they should have a place to do
Exactly.
that. Like, we're not, it's insane. The richest country in the world that spends billions on military and blowing people up. Like, come on.
Exactly. No, it's so true. So speaking of which, in terms of the cool access to education people will have if they sign up for Jubilee School, can you let us know a couple of the sessions that who will be featured and what people can expect from this series? I know that it's not completely planned out yet, but
Yeah.
we have some really great people already set in motion to come.
Yeah, and we're getting close to the launch date, and so we have a good arc already forming. I think though one way to think about it is what we're trying to do is to get folks to recognize that college can be for everybody.
Mhm,
It can be free for everybody, and we need to study how we got to this point that we're at now. So like the
mhm,
first part of this series and like the first 5 sessions or so are going to be like sessions about like, okay, how did we get into the mess we're in? Let's diagnose it. Let's diagnose it well. So we got like, our friend Astra Taylor is going to be on a call. We're going to have people talking about the labor that goes into the labor that happens at universities, from Higher Education Labor United. We're going to have policy experts talking about like where did this whole tuition bomb come from? Like that's not. It wasn't always that way, right? Like you and I both know, California, you had free college. So like, what's that history? How do we diagnose the current problems? Who caused them? Who's responsible for that? So it's like the first part of the arc. And then the second part of the arc becomes now that we know like how we got to where we are now, how do we fight for what we want? But not just in the sense of free college. Like we want to fight for free college. We want to fight for debt abolition. There's this bill called College for All. We're going to make it better and then we're going to get it passed as we build coalition, as we build power. But also too, I think something that, I think you've really been highlighting here today, which is really beautiful, which is like, yes to free college, but also like a free college where like you can study art. You can study gender studies. You can study about Palestine. You can study about whatever it might be to cultivate that critical thinking. And you're not going to have the state or some other administrative person coming down and saying, you can't teach that. You can't talk about that. So we're going to talk about like in the second part, what is academic freedom? We're going to talk about like who runs the university. So we have folks like Timothy Kaufman Osborne, who wrote this great book about like boards of trustees and how they have so much power in universities and like what do we do to where we become the board, we the people. So a lot of this is not just about, it is about like how do we get rid of the problem of this high cost tuition debt producing system that marginalizes so many and exploits others, And then it's like, all right, how do we win free college? But also, how do we win the type of education that we want? How do we cultivate that? And
Right.
like you and I have been engaged in this campaign with Debt Collective, like that gets into like, what does it mean to say we have a right to learn?
Mhm.
Like, what's all the things that entail that? And so I think the second part of the series is like getting to that. It means like democratic governance of our institutions. It means academic freedom. It means fair wages for the workers that are at the university. It means students having the ability to study what they want, teachers having the ability to teach what they want. And that's kind of like the arc of the whole thing. And from there, my friend, we got to make some plans. So
Exactly.
we're going to talk about plans. Like during these calls, each call is going to have three elements: an analysis,
Mhm,
some skill sharing, dialogue.
mhm.
Analysis, skill sharing, dialogue. You and I did one of these calls back in the last semester, right? And you shared with us, an analysis, you shared with us some tactics, some practices that you do, and then we had a conversation with the people that were there. And that's what we're going to try and do each session. And each session is not only going to have good analysis, but it's also going to be like, these are things you can do. Here's where we do 'em. So it's that blending of like, here's the theory, here's the practice, here's the practice, here's the theory, over and over again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I have to tell you, I not only did I get to facilitate a session last Jubilee School, but I got to participate in a couple of them. I think one, maybe two, and they were amazing conversations. I'm telling you, these are experts that come to Jubilee School, but also people that are really great at holding dialogues and holding conversations and just organizing in general. So definitely sign up debtcollective.org/events. You can find out which Jubilee School session you want to go to, or you can go to all of them, which I
Yeah.
highly recommend you doing. So the next question I have, just to kind of wrap things up, um, why is access to higher education such an important part of building a more just and equitable society? So I know you do a lot of work around higher education, but you also
Mhm.
talk about K through 12.
Yeah.
And so yeah, can you speak to a little bit more about the differences between K through 12 and higher education and ways that all of these things can be free and more
Yeah.
accessible?
And I really appreciate you bringing in K through 12 because I sincerely believe if we're going to win free college, that means we're going to have a united front of K through 12 unions, teachers, parents, students fighting with higher ed union teachers, parents, students
Hmm.
to say we should have free education through and through
Right.
for throughout your lifetime. And that means for elders as well. Like there's no reason that higher ed should be just for like people at a certain age in their 20s or whatever. Anybody should be able to come back to this and no one should be in debt for it.
Hmm.
Um but I think the key question here is you're hitting on a big point. Like there's both the private good of education, meaning like how does a free education that's quality benefit you and I as individuals?
Hmm.
That's obviously important. But there's also what we call like the social good, right? Like, and it's pretty clear that anyone can make an argument that says if you want a healthy society, you want a good democracy, you want a society that's not based on war, you want a society based on like care and collective well-being, you want like what we cherish, you got to have like good education opportunities for people that are accessible.
Right.
And so, in the most basic level, like we can just make an argument that's pretty old that says like education is like key to like a strong individual, but also a strong society. Democracy depends on it. And then that's why it's no accident that like the authoritarians, the fascists, the dictators, what do they come for? They come for the artists, as you know,
Mhm,
because that's also artists also producing education, producing all sorts of stuff, and they come for education.
mhm,
I used to live in Brazil for 10 years, and Brazil lived through a dictatorship sponsored by the US. What's some of the things they did? Well, they eliminated philosophy, they eliminated sociology, they were persecuting professors, students, all those folks. So we know throughout time that if you want a free society, you need free education, you need to be able to think freely, and that's why this is so important, especially right now.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, everything you're saying is so pertinent and resonates so deeply with me, and I think everybody that's viewing. Remember, we are having our Jubilee School kickoff February 26th, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, debtcollective.org/events. Thanks again,
Thank you,
Jason, for
Maddie.
going live with me. Hopefully, we can go live again soon.
Yes.
Bye, everybody. See you later.
Thank you, Maddie. Appreciate you. Take care,
Appreciate you.
everybody. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.